Okay, let's see what we have here. All right, so those people who are not with us will be able to see what we do and participate indirectly. What I'm going to plan to do is to try to put this on YouTube. Okay, and I've done that before. What?
I didn't dress for this. I didn't dress for the occasion.
Don't worry. The viewership of my previous YouTube videos remains in the below 20 number.
I'll make sure it's
okay?
ahead.
All right? Yeah, it's a pretty selected group of people. It's those whose grade is dependent on watching the YouTube video. It hasn't really, I haven't made Madonna yet. All right? Close. Okay. So, this is what's going to happen. This is a case that we're going to do as a role play. Okay? But the role that you're going to play is your own professional role. Okay? So, we have representatives from medicine, which is Arun in Violetta, who's not here, an international NGO, who's that? Yep.
That's the government, though. It's not an NGO.
No, whatever you are,
Same.
it's okay, yeah, right? Excuse me, it isn't, but so you're representing not what I'm saying, but what you are. We'll see where we go with this. Medical science, a microbiologist, okay? Hospital administration. Does anybody work in a hospital?
Don't know.
Oh, a little bit.
Okay. She wants it to be very little. It may be more than you think, so I think that's you. Kinesiology, right? Social work, no, it was going to be NECA, okay, who I didn't try to get here. Public health.
Oh, my background.
You're public health. I think that's what
Yeah.
you're going to be for this. You're not going to love me after this. Okay. Psychology.
That's Adina.
All right? The case is the team has the flu. It is the influenza season, and influenza has been reported in the community. Okay, the education was supposed to be so hard. Okay, influenza has been reported in the community. A meeting is being held to determine if a proposal should be accepted. So we as a group, and I may be part of this, we'll see. Arun, you need to represent a physician's approach to this, right? So each of you is representing not public health, except one of us, okay? The rest of you are looking at this from the perspective of your previous profession, okay? The meeting is being held to determine if a proposal should be accepted. The proposal is to cancel the outdoor physical activity for a school that treats children with cancer during the peak influenza season. What? Okay, don't say anything yet. You can see what your role is going to be, right?
I think that's...
The hospitals are full with other influenza patients. Some parents are very worried about their children getting influenza, and others want them to be physically active, considering their underlying diseases. The students will discuss the perspectives from each of their professional perspectives, as noted above. The public health professional will be the chair and will conduct this 20-minute meeting. This is longer than the others. This group will make a formal proposal to the head of this special school. After the case is discussed, the group will discuss the professional strengths and weaknesses of each profession, including their professional biases, and the class will work to develop a solution that recognizes these interprofessional features. So we're going to do that after we have our session, and then you still have to write a page on this program. Okay?
Oh,
What?
so this one's different than what we have to write for Sunday.
Yes.
What?
Well, no, what?
But we have
Yeah.
to do an interprofessional.
That's what
That's what
this
this
is.
is.
That's what this is. That's what this
Oh, okay. I was like, is there another one on
And then we
No.
have the paper for yesterday.
Yes,
What?
that's,
Emotional
Leadership seminar.
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, and that.
That's how
Don't listen to me.
Right.
You're making a mark here,
Nonsense.
stop.
You wanna do another one?
No.
Okay.
Ignore.
Okay, so,
It's just getting in your heads.
so remember now, what you're doing is you're representing your professional view of this as a decision needs to be made, okay? And Daphna, I'm gonna get you started. I'll break my usual rule, which is just to throw you in and let you swim. Because what I want each person to do is to take their professional perspective and declare it. Okay, so you take your perspective, you say what you think of this proposal, and that's the last thing I'm gonna say. So I want everybody to speak, and then you take over and you run the meeting, okay? You with me? Having fun?
So, we'll just go around and say, you know, where we're coming from, what industry we're coming from.
My name is Rachel. I'm coming from the kinesiology, sort of physical activity industry and background.
I'm Becca. I work for an international public health NGO.
I'm Medina. I am from the psychology background.
I'm Arun from medical.
I'm Emily,
And I'm a microbiologist. Great, and as you all know, I'm Rifna. I'm from public health, and I'll be running today's meeting. So as we know, it's flu season, and flu has been reported in the community. The proposal as of now is to cancel all outdoor physical activity for schools that treat children with cancer. But I wanted to hear from all of you what your perspective is on this, so we can come to some sort of decision of whether or not we should accept this proposal or not. So Rachel, would you like to start? You can go around
Yes.
in a circle.
So, I think the proposal is a bit extreme, especially coming from my background, my research, and my knowledge. You know, I know physical activity is really important for children with cancer, people with cancer in general. There's been a lot of research done on this. And, you know, physical activity does improve those with cancers lives, as well as just their overall emotional well-being while going through certain treatments. And I know it is flu season, but I don't think there's a need to necessarily cancel the outdoor physical activity. I don't think that really has such a strong impact on them getting the flu. Obviously just wearing, if it's extremely cold outside, you know, making sure the kids are dressed appropriately for the activities they're participating in.
Great, thank you. Becca.
I agree with Rachel's point of view. I think Western countries tend to go a little overboard in trying to prevent illness. I think that being outside, the flu virus probably disperses more, so the kids are less likely to get the flu than if they're in a small classroom, all breathing on each other and playing with the same toys. I agree that looking at making sure that they're appropriately dressed, and maybe that you're choosing games and activities for them to play that doesn't involve as much hands-on touching each other or the same materials. I think that maybe you can adjust the activities that they're doing, but I don't think that this is a strong proposal as presented.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm a little bit concerned about the emotional well-being and social well-being of these kids if we are taking away their opportunities to engage with each other outdoors, and to really just be kids and not be so worried about their cancer or just be reminded all the time of their illness. And I think that not giving them these opportunities will really have a negative impact on their emotional well-being and their social well-being as well. So I would not approve, or I would not want this proposal to go through. I don't think it would be beneficial to these kids.
Thank you.
For me, in case like mine, I accept what Becca said. We should take the children not to the outdoor activities, but we can in the schools we can show some movies with them, like share how to be hygiene and washing their hands and before or after doing anything. This way we can treat this influenza about the virus spreading.
So just adding more education instead of cutting out, is that the component? Thank you.
I think I stand on the opposite end of the spectrum. I do think that temporarily we should cut physical activity out, particularly with these children that are being treated for cancer because they're already immunocompromised. And a lot of times when you over physically exert yourself, that can be taxing on your immune system as well. Additionally, it seems like this strain of influenza is highly virulent if it's taking up all the space in the hospitals like it is. I'm worried about the spread of this flu, especially to those that are already weak, developing, and immunocompromised. So I think that if it is maybe burdening for emotional distress temporarily, maybe we could offer like movies or art classes or something where they can have their own space and won't be as interactive with one another and have as much of a likelihood as transmitting the virus to one another.
And do you think there's an alternative? You're saying that the physical activity they're doing now is very straining for them. Is there an alternative to that so they can still go outside?
If there's some sort of alternative where they could go outside and be a little bit more isolated, not quite as interactive, I think that would reduce the likelihood of transmission.
Okay. Well, it sounds like most of us are against this specific proposal. I do agree that it's a little bit extreme in this situation. I think from my public health perspective, we do need to do something to address the situation, but I don't think completely cutting out this physical activity is warranted. I think a combination of the education, as Arun mentioned, and continuing some sort of physical activity, but keeping in mind, the distress that it can have on the kids' bodies, coming up with a different recommendation for them, at least during this time when we know that the season is in peak. So maybe we can get together and come up with a different proposal based on all of this.
I'm going to take a role as a teacher because Subhart's not here, okay? And bring up an issue that's a concern to me as a teacher, and that is the parents. Parents are going to be very upset if any of these kids get influenza, and they're going to believe that going outside is going to increase their risk of influenza. Okay, whether it's rational or not, that's going to be their concern. So whatever decision we make, we need to recognize that the parents will take a view of this and blame us no matter what, and we need to be ready for that. And whatever we decide needs to at least recognize that the parents may be agitated.
Could I make a suggestion?
Absolutely.
Do we have an indoor gym?
We do.
Could we do the physical activity time in this indoor gym where it's still heated, and maybe have yoga mats where they have their own isolated space so they're not maybe coming in contact with each other as easily?
Yeah,
and
so
that could be a
making-
temporary substitution until this wave of the flu has died down a bit.
Yeah, I think as Becca said, we can maybe come up with, these different protocols for really making sure that we clean up after each use and
absolutely.
just making sure that it's a safe space for all of them. Does anyone have any
Well, I think just like,
addition?
keeping the kids sort of inside all day. I mean, it's not like they have to go out every day of the week, but, even just going for a walk or something where they're not, getting their heart rate up so high, but I think it's important for them to sort of leave, inside the school and not, being contained inside all day long. But I do, for sure they need physical activity regardless if it's inside or outside. I know the proposal is more focused on just canceling outdoor physical activity, so it's still okay for indoor physical activity. Just want to confirm that.
Yeah, but
Like indoor games, you mean?
Yeah, but
Give
also
them
I see the spread being worse off inside. And I know that the school is treating kids with cancer, so they already have protocols to make sure everything is extremely clean and sanitary. But I would just worry that the kids would, go a bit crazy, maybe being inside all day long, every day of the week. Go ahead.
No, I understand that parents might associate the flu with being cold outside, but we do have a broad team of experts here discussing this, and I think part of our job as the school is to make sure that the parents understand that we're taking this concern seriously and that we're getting a variety of feedback. But I agree with Rachel that keeping kids inside all the time is not necessarily healthy either. And even if it's only a 10-minute walk around the school, it's important to get kids out into fresh air. And I think that we do need to be proactive with the parents and make sure that we share with them whatever we decide why we think this is a good option, and we should make sure that they know who is at this table.
Yeah, I think maybe like having an education night for the parents, so they feel maybe more comfortable or understand our reasoning behind why we want to keep this outdoor physical activity. And because we have such a wide range of scientists, doctors, educators here, I think that maybe some of the parents would really listen to what we have to say.
Absolutely.
I agree. I think part of our duty to this education program would be to really educate parents about how they can also work to improve these kids or to prevent them from getting sick. So if they're also involved in cleaning things at home, if they're also involved in making sure that the child knows they have to wash their hands every time they come back inside, I think that could be very beneficial. Also, perhaps if we can teach the parents to recognize the early signs of influenza, so that if they think their child might be beginning to come down with something, that they will say that their child should not go to school that day and then affect other children.
That's a great idea.
And again, the most of the time the teacher is more involved with the students, so we should give an idea what are the symptoms should be, if the children get the influenza about this. So we have to teach somehow to the teachers, and if some children are so isolated and to be sick in the classes, we should take care of to send them to the hospitals at the emergency time, and also we should follow up the every kids in behalf of the teachers. So teachers are playing a major role in this stories. Maybe we should give more of ideas to the teachers what this causes and what are the symptoms to be happens, and also they can write letters to their parents if something happens, is what subtle solutions.
So what I'm hearing from everyone is we want to educate the kids, the parents, and the teachers. And how do we feel about some sort of opt-out option for those parents that really are firm? And
My only issue with that is that I feel like some kids might feel ostracized because it might not be their personal choice, but it's their parents' choice, and it maybe could cause conflict between children. So I'm just, not sure how well that would.
so we need to go with a more kind of paternalistic approach and tell them, what we're coming up with, that they cannot opt out of it.
Well, you would need additional staff also if you have some
Yeah.
kids doing this and some kids doing that. Is that even an
It's
option?
feasible.
Because it impacts the budget.
Right. Great. Well, it sounds like we will not be going with the proposal as is. I think, at least from my perspective, the idea of having these 3 separate educational initiatives sounds like a really great place to start. And I think together, if we can have a few more discussions, about what we want the activity to look like. I think we're not cutting that out as an option. It doesn't sound like that would be healthy for the kids. We can come up with a solution that would be safe and healthy for them throughout the season. Anything else? Does anyone? No.
Everybody at peace?
So my physical activity program, so.
Okay, that's done.